Today we're going to create a collagraph, which is basically just a collage that's made from thicker pieces of cardstock or cardboard that we can then use to create prints or rubbings from. To begin, you want to draw a simple yet interesting item that fits our pop art food theme. I cannot stress enough that what you draw needs to be big. It should take up the majority of your square. If you feel like it looks kind of small, it probably is. Try again on the back. A bigger drawing will make the collaging part a lot easier if you're working with large shapes. This drawing is basically going to become a stencil that you're going to use as a guide. It is not your final artwork, so don't worry if you see erased pencil marks or mistakes. This is not the final artwork. Once you have your drawing, you're going to use it like a stencil. It will simply be traced many times to help you create all the pieces of your collagraph puzzle. To turn this into a stencil, all you have to do is use one of my ebony pencils and lay down some quick color all over the back of your paper. This does not need to be perfect, it just needs to be behind all of your pencil lines that you drew on the front. Once you have your stencils created, now it's time to make all the pieces of your puzzle. Look at your drawing and identify your biggest overall shapes that appear to be in the background. You will place your stencil on top of your cardstock and trace around one of your big shapes. For me, that was the top part of my whipped cream and also the outline of my cup. When you're tracing over your stencil, it will push that ebony pencil from the back of your stencil onto the front of your cardstock so you can see your shape. Move your stencil if you need to and trace your other big shapes in different areas. They don't have to be connected to your first shape. Once you have your big shapes traced onto your cardstock, cut them out and use a glue stick to glue them down to your blue background paper. Leave a really small gap between your shapes to help create some visual division in your work so it doesn't just look like one gigantic shape. Next, you'll move on to your medium-sized shapes that are a little bit closer to you. Trace those shapes onto your cardstock by using your stencil. In my example, I'm tracing a trapezoid shape, kind of like the sleeve of my coffee cup, as well as the circle for that Starbucks logo. I will then cut and glue those shapes on top of what I already have on my background, creating kind of a second and third layer. Last, I have my smallest details, the text of my logo as well as the texture lines inside my whipped cream. You kind of have three options for tiny details. You can try to make them out of paper. Some things are easier to make than others. You can also use a pen on top of your cardstock, press down really hard into the paper, kind of like you were carving into your styrofoam at the very beginning of the year. That's what I end up doing for my Starbucks kind of letters and the drawing inside the logo. Or you can even use the bottled glue to draw some lines with glue that when they dry will be raised up and three-dimensional. Because we have so many different designs, you're going to have to do some problem solving to figure out what combination of techniques will work best for you. In my pretzel example, I really only had 2 layers, a bunch of kind of medium-sized shapes that were cut out and glued back together, slightly spaced out, and then I just cut up some really tiny kind of shapes for my salt and glued those down. Again, it's just going to depend on what your design is and kind of what techniques you want to use. Once our collagraphs are complete, then we will be able to use them as a rubbing plate. So to do that, we'll just take a crayon, kind of lay it on its side, and when you rub over the top of your paper, your design should be revealed. All those areas that are kind of raised up and higher will show up as kind of a darker, harder edge.